So Trump sent them all to El Salvador because they have this really awesome prison.
Okay, I'm actually crazy. How do you define a really awesome prison?
A prison is awesome if it's designed to punish and house violent gang members in a way that's both punitive and a deterrent for becoming a violent gang member. Welcome to Silberman Law Firm's Weekly Docket, episode 62, where we talk legal news and practical law. Today is March 21st, 2025, and I'm your host, Phil Silberman, and owner of the firm. I'm joined by my co-host, Austin Black, who works in our Dallas office, but is currently in downtown Houston, just finishing up a hearing. How are you doing today, Mr. Black?
I'm great. I love that we have elected judges in Texas who want attorneys to come travel a decent amount of time for a 10-minute hearing. It's really nice.
So let's be careful. The judge may be a listener to the show, so be mindful.
I guarantee the judges won't listen to the show, but yeah.
Oh, man. We don't know. But what's on our dock today, Austin?
Yeah, so first we're going to be talking about an update on the proposed THC ban in Texas, which was passed. So we'll talk about the implications of that to all you potheads and those who might choose to partake otherwise. I don't know. Then we'll move on to maybe talking about a similar demographic. I don't know. Deporting non-citizen gang members, okay? The Trump administration is attempting to use the Alien Enemies Act, a law that has not been utilized, I believe, in the U.S. since World War II right now. So we will be talking about exactly how it's being utilized here, what it is, and whether or not we are putting poor Venezuelan gang members in internment camps. And then we'll be moving on to our legal questions section. First, discussing if a lender can avoid homestead protections with creative documents. In other words, like there are a lot of protections for homesteads, like you can't apply a lot of liens to them, things like that. However, can a lender get at the homestead in some way, shape, or form if they structure their documents in a certain way? We'll let you know if that's possible. Then moving on to the rant and rave section, we're talking about hearts, specifically Texas Senate Bill 379. I think we mentioned it briefly in a previous show, but basically the Texas Senate is attempting to ban the use of food stamps for things that are labeled junk food, candy bars, energy drinks, things like that. And the American Heart Association is opposed to that. Why? We'll talk about it.
For me, most of the show can really be considered a rant and rave, with the exception of our homestead question. But okay, let's go ahead and get it.
I'm ranting about homesteads. That's a rant and rave for me.
All right, let's go ahead and get it kicked off with our legal news section. Poison in our public. That's Dan Patrick's quote. So this one actually does get me fired up. 8,300 of these hemp CBD stores that you see all over the place in every strip center in the state is the estimate that we have selling this THC stuff. Full disclosure, I absolutely hate them. Okay. I think it brings just a schlecky element to neighborhoods. I think they sell potent stuff that's ruining people's minds. And I think it's all bad. Do you feel that way? Or am I alone in that sentiment?
I don't know, Phil. I thought maybe your gentrification is showing. You're trying to crowd out all the THC shops, these poor independent business people trying to make their way in the world.
Gummies, vapes, flower beds. They can all go get another job as far as I'm concerned.
I have some friends, right, who do partake sort of stuff. Not many, but some. None who live in Texas, so they won't be affected by this regardless. But on the ones who do, none of them smoke, because I think even young people are pretty aware of the fact that joints are even worse or just as bad for your lungs as cigarettes are, and none of them really want like that sort of impact on their lungs. But from what I've seen, like gummies usually don't have an effect on your lungs, even if they can't have effects on your brain. So
yeah, I don't know. I think this powerful THC stuff is pretty bad. And we did previous shows. We were talking about the weed that Bob Marley smoked or in the
Yeah.
80s, or the Woodstock marijuana and all that wasn't near as potent. And there were some studies about that. We
Yeah.
won't belabor that point though, but Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, he's championing the bill saying, hey, this is a good thing. It's poisoning our young people. I see that anecdotally, by the way. I know some kids that started out on THC in high school and got really messed up from the long-term usage of THC. We don't have a lot of data on that right now, but I think it's a bad thing. I think these stores need to close. Now, critics of the bill, Austin, the ones that, like the THC, they're looking at this from an economic perspective. They're estimating that 50,000 jobs are going to be lost, billions of dollars in tax revenue. My answer to that is go find something else to do. And there's all kinds of illegal things we can create in Texas that may be societal harms that will generate tax revenue. We can legalize gambling, we can legalize prostitution, we can legalize all sorts of drugs and have that be a boon to tax revenue. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's a good thing to society.
I agree with that. I do. From what I've seen on THC stuff, I don't think it gets like in the realm of dangerous drugs, and in my opinion, from what I've read. I know you said that you've heard of people having marijuana-induced rages. I haven't seen anything about that. Maybe that's the case.
I think that there's not a lot of data out there. And I think the
Yeah.
early data that I'm seeing in the articles I'm reading are saying that if they're using THC for an extended period of time, they're just having these psychotic episodes. And
Yeah.
there's a huge increase in psychotic episodes among our young people all of a sudden. And we're wondering why. And they're starting to link that to THC usage. That old kind of idea, just smoke a bunch of weed and you fall asleep, so you're harmless. I think that's different than the THC stuff they're getting, but
Possibly. Yeah.
we'll
No.
see. The bill passed the Texas Senate. It's going to the House to be approved. So we'll see what happens.
Is it expected to pass the House?
A lot of conservative bills that did not have a chance in previous years have a much better chance now because you've got the House much more conservative because of that Trump conservative. So we're hoping to get a lot more conservative bills passed this
Interesting.
session. But so we think it's got a chance.
Texas always has trouble getting conservative bills passed. Yeah.
I
know what you mean.
It's all relative, right?
It
It's
is all relative. It is all
All right,
relative.
let's talk about our next legal news topic. We're talking about deporting non-citizen gang members and the Alien
Yeah.
Enemies Act. Are you familiar with Tren de Aragua?
No.
Okay, that's a gang, Venezuelan gang, and we think there's about 5,000 members of this gang that started in prison in Venezuela and has become a transnational criminal organization.
Are they all bodybuilders?
Why do you say that?
I mean, Tren is a bodybuilding drug. That's the only time I've heard that word.
It actually is Train, the Spanish Tren.
Yeah, that's how you spell the drug name too.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, it allegedly was named because they think it got its start as some part of railway worker or railway union in Venezuela. And then it started doing illegal acts, started in prison. The guy who started it is about 40 years old. I think he has a $5 million bounty on his head.
Wow.
The U.S. is trying to get him.
You really got to stop this train.
You got to stop it. Look,
Yeah.
it's a bad thing. Trump accused, do you have the Trump quote there? The accusation?
Yeah, he accused just Venezuela or the
gang.
gang?
The gang.
Okay. He accused the gang of, quote, perpetrating, attempting, and threatening an invasion of predatory incursion against the United States.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure if he knows what those words mean, to be completely honest.
No, he didn't write them. Come on, he didn't write. Trump didn't write that. But that's what the White House says.
Okay.
Idea being that so many of the Venezuelan gang members are coming into the country. They're committing crimes and different murders and all these kinds of bad things. They're linked up with the cartels in Mexico, and we need to shut them down. We need to get them out of here. Trump has gone so far as to say that we took so many of these gang members from Venezuela that the crime is actually way down in Venezuela because they all came here. Now that normally, when Trump says stuff like that, that normally, is that really true? But Austin, the BBC verified it as partly true.
Yeah, the BBC is verifying as partly true anything Trump is saying, and I think it's probably 100% true.
That was my gut feeling on it as well. So I'm glad we're aligned in that.
Yeah.
Okay. So this Alien Enemies Act, the history of it, interesting.
And just as a side note, the BBC has a lot of time to do extra work right now because they can't travel because Heathrow's entirely shut down today.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, there was a fire. The entire airport shut down. Sorry, side note, but yeah.
Big airport. Sorry if you're going in and out of Heathrow today.
sorry.
Bad deal. All right. So this Alien Enemies Act, it's an interesting thing. It was passed in 1798. It was designed to give the president the power to expel people that are threats, immigrants and non-citizens, maybe even citizens, I guess, because it was originally used for people that had ancestral ties to some of these countries we were at war with. It was used 3 times, once in the War of 1812, again in World War I, World War II, that's the 3 times, and now Trump is using it for the 4th time. World War I and World War II, that was all about Japanese and German type stuff, and I don't know how or why it was used in the War of 1812, but
probably against loyalists.
Probably, yeah. That'd have been my guess.
I mean, we could have just been putting French people in prison. That would have been funny and pointless, but yeah.
Okay, it's not. Who knows? But the stuff that happened to the Japanese, and the liberals are citing the Japanese internment camps, that was certainly detestable and a really bad thing that happened.
Yes.
Japanese people were put into basically these concentration camp type places and really bad stuff. And I think, Austin, some of them were actually citizens. I believe that's correct.
Yes. What we did to the Japanese during World War II, and yes, there were a multitude of war crimes on the side of the Japanese as well, but it was just very, very bad, very bad.
Yeah. So the liberals are saying, oh, this act was used in a bad way before, so now the usage is also bad. That's just not true. That's not what's going on. We're taking violent, dangerous gang members. And by the way, the public, moderates, conservatives, I think even people on the left that may not admit it in certain circles, no one is against this. Nobody wants a Venezuelan gang member with a bunch of tattoos that's committed a bunch of crimes in other places in the country.
Except for Venezuelans, maybe.
So the president of Venezuela.
No, I mean Venezuelans in Venezuela.
Well, okay, I see what you mean. Yes.
Yeah.
The Venezuelans want to keep him here. So Trump sent them all to El Salvador because they have this really awesome prison. I saw a documentary on it. I saw some footage of it. The prison is awesome. It's like
I'm actually crazy. How do you define a really awesome prison?
A prison is awesome if it's designed to punish and house violent gang members in a way that's both punitive and a deterrent for becoming a violent gang member.
Okay. So you would disagree with how they house prisoners in like Norway?
I don't know Norway's like I did see some social media stuff where you had to guess whether it was a college dorm or a prison.
Yeah.
But we have to return to these Venezuelan gang members.
Returning to Venezuelan gang members.
They were rounded up and they were put on a plane and deported on this airplane. The plane's in midair. They get it before a federal judge. The judge says, turn the plane around, bring the Venezuelan gang members back. We want them back. And the Trump administration basically gives them the finger and says, no, they're going to El Salvador. And they get to El Salvador and they go to the amazing prison. That's what happened. Because in Venezuela, the gang members trained to Aruaga, they actually took over the prison in Venezuela and turned it into a resort. They had a zoo.
Yeah.
And they had a pool.
Yeah.
This guy in El Salvador.
I mean, I respect that though. When life gives you lemons, right?
Yeah, take over the prison and turn it into a resort for gang members, right? That's what happened. So they're going there. Now, this is really a power struggle between the judicial branch and the executive branch. Trump's response is, no, Mr. Judge, we don't have to listen to you. Our branches of government, both the executive and the judicial, are co-equal.
Yeah.
So we have full power to do it under this act, and we're protecting the public. That was Trump's response The judge did not like it. The judge demanded some information, and they have that power struggle going on. Real quick, Austin, we got to give them the counter argument. If we're on the left, why is this a bad thing?
There are arguments that some Venezuelan men have properly sought asylum and they're being deported to a foreign country based on the fact that they have certain tattoos.
Yeah.
There are some tattoos that are associated with these gangs in Venezuela. And then there are some normal tattoos that people have that might look like they're associated with the gangs in Venezuela.
Yeah.
I personally have 8 tattoos that people have commonly confused with the Yakuza, the Russian mob, and the Venezuelan gang.
A little suspect. And we don't want ICE to come and round you up because you have
that would not be good.
The wrong tattoo. So it's
exactly.
So First Amendment, if we're making the counter argument, First Amendment, we want people to get tattoos and be able to express themselves freely. I don't personally want people to get tattoos, but if you want to, that's a First Amendment right. And we don't want to deport you if you've properly sought asylum and send you to somewhere else. That's how that's going. Me personally, I think the Democrats are way out of touch. I think this is earning big points for Republicans, and nobody wants these guys here, and everyone's happy they're now in El Salvador. That's my take on it. All right, we got to move on to our legal question section. First question we're answering, Austin, can a lender avoid homestead protections with creative documents and thinking? Have you had one of these cases before? Do you know much about this, or? Really? Okay.
Yes.
Cool. So what's going on here is these lenders come in, someone owns a house, they live in it. In Texas, we have homestead protections. Tell the listeners a little bit about just homestead protection in general, Austin.
Yeah, so homestead protections basically keep you, if you have a piece of real property, you live in it, it's your home, you do the proper filing for a homestead exemption. I mean, you don't even necessarily need to do the proper filing. You can just do it when you need it, and it'll apply retroactively to a lot of things, at least. But basically, it protects your home from having a lien placed on it in a lot of situations and then being sold as collateral for the lien. For instance, it comes into play a lot of the time on mechanics liens. If you have an issue with a builder or a remodeler in your home and they want to get paid an invoice that they think that they're due, and they don't want to go through the steps of suing you to satisfy that invoice, they can attempt to place a lien on your property. And if they file a lien in the property records, that clerk looking at the property records is not going to look at it and say, this is your homestead property. They can't do this. They're just going to file it and accept it in there, and it will, for all intents and purposes, quote unquote, attach to your property, even if it's not correct.
We have really strong homestead protections in Texas. We want to protect people from losing their homes. Yep. And we have some limited things that will allow a forced sale of a homestead. We call them the Magic 8. Austin was referencing some of them. Purchase money loans. We want people to be able to get loans, and if they don't pay them, their house can be foreclosed. Home equity loans, refinance loans, taxes. So things like this. There's 8 of them, and we don't want unscrupulous lenders making loans for other reasons, and we don't want to give people the ability to collateralize their home against a business loan. So what these lenders have done is they'll come in and they'll try to skirt around our homestead laws, and they'll do these pretend sales. They do all kinds of things. They'll ask the homeowner to put their property in an LLC. They'll ask the homeowner to deed the property over to them. I had a call yesterday, Austin. It was interesting. I've never seen this before. A Texas attorney actually designed an option contract for a lender that said, okay, if you default on my promissory note, then the lender has the option to come in and buy your house at a discounted price. So it was really just this creative way of saying, okay, you're going to sell me the house. So it was, it's just crazy. And here's what I think lenders out there, you need to know, because we get a lot of these calls. Just, you can't touch this stuff. Homestead is sacred in Texas. Now, if you're a borrower out there and you own a homestead, I guess you could take this information and start to use it in a predatory manner, and say, yeah, give me money. Sure, you can have a loan against my homestead. There's been some cases where the courts have frowned on that. People, let's stay away from attempting to collateralize Homestead. It's really that simple. That's the answer to that question. All right, Austin, we got to rant and
Pretty
rave a little. Straightforward. We got to rant and rave a little bit, Austin, because you're catching a trip up back to Dallas here in a little bit. Okay, this one has me fired up, like really fired up. American Heart Association. I'm a big health guy. Right, all about let's exercise, stay healthy, stay away from sugary drinks, stay away from bad food. We talked a lot on the show, Austin, about staying out of the center section of the grocery store. Senate Bill 379 passed, or not. Well, I don't know the status of it quite yet, but Senate Bill 379.
That also doesn't apply to every grocery store, just so you know. There's a grocery store that I like, a normal Tom Thumb, by the way. And the outside of the grocery store, like left side's all good, right? That's all good. That's like fruit, bread, stuff like that. Around here is meat, but then this entire side is all alcohol. So that does not sound like a good diet to me, Phil.
Okay, all right. So Tom Thumb has broken the mold, but all right. Senate Bill 379. Author of the bill, Mays Middleton, a friend of mine from a long time ago when I went to high school. Good guy. Okay, so he authored this bill. Good heart. There you go. Authored this bill that says, look, you can't use food stamps to buy junk food. You just can't do it. I think the details of the bill, it amends Texas Human Resources Code by introducing this new section, prohibits the use of SNAP, purchasing certain food and beverages, like energy drinks, sweet soda, NAS candy, potato, corn chips, all this kind of stuff. I think it's a great bill. What do you think about the bill, Austin?
Yeah, no, I also agree. It's a good bill. I would want to make sure that everything is like correct on there. There's nothing that's on that list that shouldn't be, right?
Yeah.
But yes, agree in principle with it.
Okay. All right. Good job, Mays, on that one. We like it. So now look, here's what's got me fired up. So they have a hearing on the bill, right? The proposed bill. And shockingly, and I knew very little about this, the American Heart Association shows up to actually oppose the bill. And I'm like, and even I don't know who it was, but I saw some of the testimony. I guess it was another Texas senator or whoever it was, some type of legislature. And I think she's quoted as saying, nothing surprises me in this building, but is the irony not lost on you that you're the American Heart Association and you're showing up to oppose a bill that is clearly going to benefit the health of society? It's got me fired up. And then, so all this social media stuff started coming out about it. And it was like, and then we started digging into AHA donors. And this blew me away. Did you know that Coca-Cola and Pepsi have donated money to the American Heart Association?
I didn't know that, no.
It's crazy. And just to be clear, okay, Pepsi owns all this. They own Frito-Lays and Cheetos, Doritos, all the chips that are really bad for you, all the sugary soda stuff. It is undisputed that none of this stuff is good for you. And we don't want anybody, but we certainly don't want poor people on food stamps going to the grocery store and making themselves worse and getting diabetes and buying all the wrong kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And you know, I've got one more thing to say about this, and you could say this isn't relevant, but I think it's very relevant. The CEO of the American Heart Association, Nancy Brown, you're the CEO of a nonprofit, and Nancy Brown, if you listen to this piece or you see this on social media, shame on you, okay? Nancy Brown, in the fiscal year ending 2023, had compensation of over $4 million to run.
Which probably means it's like at 6 or 5 at least this last year.
Who knows? But the number we had is $4 million. And there is no way I could get someone right now to run the American Heart Association for $500,000. I think that'd be plenty of money. It'd be a good job. And you could with a straight face then argue that you're running a very large nonprofit and you're deserving of the salary to run that nonprofit. But also, that's crazy.
Can I just say, have you seen what Nancy Brown looks like?
No.
Nancy Brown is overweight.
Really? That's ridiculous. Is she like morbidly obese?
Yeah, not morbidly obese, but she also has the creepiest freaking smile I've ever seen in my entire life.
Let's have a look at her.
I would think she wants to I would think she wants to eat my.
She is creepy. Like I gotta put.
Yeah, she's super creepy.
I gotta put a photo of her on the. We're dropping a photo of her. I don't have any full body images of her, but she's rocking the bright red lipstick. All right.
I like that would scare me like very much. Like someone could dress up as her for Halloween, and that would be a legitimate costume.
She doesn't look that obese to me, by the way. I don't have a full body shot. She does look a little like plasticky. Anyway.
Yeah.
All right.
But okay, brief before we close though, when I first heard about this bill, I heard about it from X or Twitter, right?
Yeah.
God, like the left likes to complain about like Twitter being like a very right leaning space at the moment. And like in actuality, it's not. Like it's just more balanced now. There's a very good mixture of right and left. They just don't like the fact that there's also right leaning stuff on there.
And you're a big Twitter guy, a big X guy.
I don't really tweet much. I just follow stuff on there.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, the amount of left leaning accounts commenting on this and saying it's like something to the effect in many different ways. Republicans don't want poor people to be happy.
That's it. Yes, that's the story. That's the story. Don't want them to be happy.
You don't want them to be happy. Implying to be clear that the only way people in lower income brackets can attain happiness is through junk food and sweet beverages. Dude, it is for the left-leaning people who that is your legitimate position. And if it is, I think your IQ is probably quite below room temperature.
No, we don't want. That's just a bizarre take on it. Oh, we don't want poor people to be happy.
But like, you're implying that you would rather, even if that is the case, right? Even if that is the case, no one is arguing that this stuff doesn't contribute to health.
No,
undisputed. If that's the only way they can attain happiness, I'd rather than be alive and unhappy.
Yeah, it's a bad thing. It's a bad thing. No one's disputing this is bad. Now, we do have to, I think, in fairness to the American Heart Association, they figured out how bad this was, and they walked it back.
And they walked it back, saying the miscommunication at the hearing from our representative, who is based in Texas.
Oh my goodness, they got to say that. Okay,
that the side note, who is that almost because the way that like the rest of like north of the country and like the east and west coast think about Texas and any southern state. Yeah, it's crazy to me.
Yeah,
they think it's
the yokel we employ,
the yokel that we hired to represent us was unfortunate.
Yeah, go ahead. All right, keep reading.
We have corrected the record and worked to ensure this will not happen again, aka not hiring someone in Texas. No, they didn't say that. Weiss said via email, quote, the association remains committed to increasing the consumption of healthy food and decreasing the consumption of sugary drinks across our mission-critical work in scientific research, public policy, and public awareness.
Then stop taking money from Coca-Cola and Pepsi. Stop it. All right.
Yeah.
That brings our show to a close. That's been a wrap for episode 62 of the Weekly Docket. I've been your host, Phil Silverman. Austin Black has been my co-host. Like us, follow us, review us wherever you get your podcasts. And as a reminder, nothing in this show is meant to be legal advice. This has all been for entertainment purposes only. If you have a legal question, email us at info@silblawfirm.com. That's info at silb, S-I-L-B like boy, lawfirm.com. Let us know you want it answered publicly on the show. Everybody have a great weekend.
Yeah, thanks, guys.